Okay. 2:30. The following remarks on this subject were made to us by a spirit whose communications we have already quoted several times in the present work. As we have told you, mediums as such play but a secondary part in the work of spirit communication. Their action is that of the electric machine which transmits telegraphic dispatches from one point to the Earth's surface to another point. Thus, when we wish to dictate a communication, we act on the medium as a telegraphic clerk acts on his machinery. That is to say, just as the action of the telegraphic needle impresses on a band of paper, thousands of leagues away, the signs which reproduce the dispatch. So, by means of the mediumnemic apparatus, we transmit at what the immeasurable distances which separate the visible material world from the invisible immaterial world. The communications we are permitted to make to you. And just as atmospheric influences act upon and sometimes disturb the transmission of a telegraphic dispatch, so the moral influence of the medium acts upon and sometimes disputes the transmission of our dispatches from the world beyond the grave. When we are obliged to transmit those dispatches through a medium who is sympathetically or intellectually opposed to their tenor, this opposing influence is, however, often annulled by the energy of our will, so that messages of high philosophic import and elevated morality are sometimes conveyed through mediums but little fitted for their transmission, while on the other hand, very unedifying communications are occasionally intruded through mediums who are grieved and ashamed to have been used for their transmission. But notwithstanding these occasional exceptions, it may be affirmed as a general proposed position that incarnate spirits attract disincarnate spirits of similar nature and advancement, and that the spirits of high degree rarely communicate through mediums who are bad conductors when they have a hand good mediumic machinery, that is to say, good mediums. Mediums who do not understand the responsibility of their mission attract frivolous spirits whose communications are commonplace, shallow, and incoherent, and heterodox from the spiritist point of view. Mediums who are used as penholders or mouthpieces by, by okay,
Pretentious,
anxious,
presumptuous.
presumptuous, or deceptive spirits sometimes say very good things, but for this very reason, messages must always be subjected to severe and scrupulous examination. For in the midst of these good things, hypocritical and perfidious spirits often artfully introduce false statements calculated to mislead their auditors. Every doubtful word and sentence must therefore be stricken out, and only what is in accordance with reason or with the principles of Spiritist doctrine already laid down and accepted should be preserved.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's, it's even harsh to stop the thought process is so it follows through so easily. And it's one single statement being made here that ideally, when we want to communicate pass our thoughts to someone else, and we need a medium to do so, we would like this medium to be as neutral as possible, right? Um, let's say that I have to send an email. I don't know, when you try to send a text message using our smart cell phones, and it has the spell checker, right? We have seen so many problems with that, or at least I had suffered so many problems with that, that I misspell a word and then the telephone will make a correction, but put in a different word to what I want to send. I mean, I have experienced several times that now I really make sure that I read everything before I send, because I had embarrassed myself with sending information that I did not want to send, because the machine, the medium that I use to send the text to, let's say, to my wife or to anyone else, did not have the fidelity with my thought. I put a misspelled word and it changed it into a completely different word, which may completely change what I wanted to say. So if I have a computer, my cell phone, that does that, I'll have much greater chance of sending my real thoughts to that person, that message, even if it is with a misspelled word. Having a misspelled word is better than have a word that completely changes the meanings of what I want to say. You guys understand that?
Mm.
It makes complete sense, right? So I need to use a medium to send a message to my wife who has work right now. And I'm gonna use my cell phone. My cell phone is my medium here. And I wanted that cell phone to be as good as possible to deliver my thoughts without any input of the cell phone itself. If I misspell the word, it may change the word to something completely different, and my wife will receive a different message. The cell phone is just a machine. It has no sentiments, has no feelings, has nothing, right? It has a bunch of means to try to figure out what the word I wanted to send is. If I want to send my thought to another person through a medium, a human being, now it's different. Now I'm not dealing with a machine anymore. I'm dealing with someone who has moral qualities and these qualities, who has, all of us have our prejudices, all of us have our limitations, all of us, all of us have more or less of a vocabulary within us that spirits can utilize at any point, which may or may not make the transmission of my thought through that medium, using that medium to another person to write, in most of this case, the psychography, right? To write my thoughts. If, again, I very often use this example, if, let's say, which is not going to happen in psychography, but just an example. Well, let's say that an spirit of a Nazi who still really believes that in the superior race and let's say Jews should be eliminated from Earth. It just happens that the medium there is a Jewish individual. That communication will be impossible. It is so much antagonistic. An idea is so much antagonistic to that medium that that medium will not be able to pass that message. It's unlikely to happen anyway. It's not going to happen, but it's just a very clear example for us to understand here. Just listening today of the death of the major leader of the South Africa, the type of apartheid, the man who really committed a lot of crimes against humanity. He just kind of today, just died today. And he have taped a message that was taped, I think, 7 days ago before his death. There was to be um, released only after his death. And he was very sick. He has a very moribund type of voice and labored breathing, and he's trying to speak. And in that message, he was actually asking for forgiveness that since the 80s, he have understood all his fault, all the mistakes that he had made, and he was really sorry for all the harm, and he knows all the harm that he caused to blacks, browns, and Indians. It sounds extremely um, truthful. It sounds like he was really repentant of what he has done. And I was imagine if this individual now in the spiritual world really has this change of mind and wants to work to repair all his mistake and have the opportunity to do in the spiritual world. And he wants to, let's say, psychography, write a psychography. If he uses a medium, even if he's a more evolved person, a medium who is doing the best to evolve, but it still has tremendous amount of scars secondary to the period of apartheid in South Africa, it will become very difficult for him to pass the thoughts completely. There will be difficulty for that medium to be a proper instrument. Now, more evolved spirits, they want to bring messages that is in accordance with the teachings of Christ. And I'm saying in accordance with the teachings of Christ. It may be a Buddhist, it may be uh, a non-religious, but if it's evolved, it's going to be in accordance with the teachings of Christ. So it'll be in accordance of equality. It'll be in accordance of exercise of humbleness and charity and all those good things. When that spirit finds a medium with the same kind of ideologies, of goals, that message will flow easily. The medium will pick up a paper and pencil, and the words are gonna flow naturally. If that medium is still more like us, more selfish, more egocentric, and this thoughts of selflessness is too hard, it puts limitation on the spirit to pass those thoughts. They will use again, I always say the best instrument available. If there is no one that's the best, they'll use the second best until it comes to a point that I cannot use it anymore. It may come to a point that they don't have any good instrument to use, they will not use. But the moral qualities of the medium does affect the ability of the spirit to pass a more higher level of message. And that's why we always say in spiritism, we practice spiritism in Jesus. And that means that we should seek to improve ourselves every day. And again, Erasto himself says in this book, we know you guys. You know what you guys are made of. And you're not asking any sainthood from you. We are not asking guys to be, second best to Christ. We know your limitations. All we ask is your best effort to better yourself. Once you do that, then you'll be able to use us. Then you'll be able to utilize us as a medium. Because we have that affinity of trying to be better, trying to do my best. And of course, we're talking about following the teachings of Christ here. That's why a mediumship with Christ. And to follow the quest of mediums, I always want to say that There may be a medium that is Buddhist. They may never heard of Christ, or living in the high elevations of Nepal, never heard of Christ. And maybe someone who follows the teachings of Christ, maybe one who practices all the laws that you're reading in the Spirit's book. I think it's important to remember that practice leadership with Jesus doesn't mean that you have to be Christian. You just have to have the goals, objectives, and try my best to live in accordance to his teachings. And his teachings, of course, there is just one truth, is being taught in different areas to different teachers because there is only one real truth. So someone in the high elevation of Nepal practicing Buddhist, if that person is good, this person is practicing the teachings of Christ without ever heard of Christ. And a medium who exercise psychography over there, if it's elevated, will attract more elevated spirits. If it's less elevated, we will attract less elevated spirits. When it comes to psychography, naturally, um, a less evolved spirit will not create affinity to write a message vulgar, um, irresponsible, amped through a good medium, an educated medium. And when it happens, the medium will look at that message and say, well, this is carries no value. This is not a good thing. I'm going to trash it. But a medium who is full of vanity, a medium who is, because it's still a medium, it still has the ability of psychography, the fact that it's proudful, vain, self does not makes him not to be a medium. It can be mediums anywhere, because again, it's organic faculty. It's not a moral attribute. It's an organic thing. So you may be good mediums, bad mediums, educated mediums, those who don't get to educate themselves. Those who are, again, with the mindset of, of that is contrary to the teachings of Christ, they will be used as an instrument by spirits who have the same kind of thoughts. That is a matter of affinity here. So it does matter the moral qualities of the mediums, especially when you're dealing with psychography. Naturally, that does not apply for work of assistance, is work of rescue, when well-educated medium practitioners of true Christianity will receive rebellious, angry spirits. This is not, now we're not talking about a matter of affinity. It's a work of assistance. There's nothing to do with affinity here in this case. Okay, I have to make that clear here. Because Shikshavya himself, when he was in his leadership meeting doing the work of assistance rescue, received the worst of the worst because he could handle them. But when it was time for psychography, we have here, almost 500 books, and we see them that, and even André Luiz, Chico Xavier, and that's important to say here. Even André Luiz, everything that was Chico Xavier, everything that was published from psychography of Chico Xavier, it has to pass by the approval of a manual. It has to be, and sometimes even added by Emmanuel before it was published. Because even Chico Xavier, perhaps the most Christian person that ever existed, could have traces in himself that at that time it changed some of the quality of the work that was supposed to come out. So Emmanuel was there to make sure that he would say, allow the thing to be published, and before the thing to be published, he would reveal it and even edit some of the stuff. Okay, questions, comments? Okay, let's continue.
Okay. Communications of the nature we are considering are only dangerous for isolated spiritists or for groups of spiritists who have but recently taken up the subject and are but little enlightened. For in societies whose members are more experienced, the jay gains nothing by putting on peacock feathers and is sure to find his borrowed plumage steadily stripped away. I do not speak of mediums who take pleasure in evil communications. Let us leave them to the congenial society of cynical spirits. Fortunately, communications of this order are rarely made in serious circles, and at all events can excite only contempt and disgust among the members of serious and philosophic groups. But
Yes.
where the influence, oh, stop here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
important to mention over here because Eras now makes a differentiation of let's take aside the well-prepared mediums or well-prepared group, and let's go to mediums who are well-intended, but perhaps does not understand. Remember that now we have all this guidance to help us to form spiritist groups, to study mediumship, to understand what this is all about before we engage on the practice of mediumship. Mediums are being well prepared to do the things, right? But at a time when we didn't have that, a group of new spiritists would get together and try to figure things on their own, right? And even if they are well intended, since they don't have the theory that we have now, they could become easily prey to opportunistic, so to say. Spirits use them as an instrument to spread their inferior thoughts, especially among those groups, especially individuals who's doing psychographies in their own bedroom by themselves without consulting anyone, saying, I can do this, I'm the best, is at risk, even with a good intention, of become a prey of those opportunistic spirits who will use them to write low quality of material, even when the medium is well intended. Just by doing things without the proper care, without the proper protection, without being in the proper environment, make them subject or possible prey of those opportunistic spirits who want to use them for low quality kind of messages. But then there is another group of mediums who, in the quote over here, who takes pleasure in evil communication, who wants to write the bad stuff.
Mhm.
And that kind of say, those I don't even talk about them, just leave them alone because if that's all they want to do, there's nothing we can do for them. If I'm as a medium, I sit and see and I say, oh, you guys want to write all the evil communications come to me, the good spirits are just gonna walk away. There's nothing that can be done. But the ones who wants to do the best, but those don't have the know-how, they'll be protected. And because of humbleness, they will evaluate their own work and say, oh, this is not good quality communication, and they will not use those things. So it's important to have this differentiation that we may produce bad quality work just because you don't have the know-how, you don't know, it's still in the process of learning how to deal with this thing. And with those who produce bad work because they want to produce bad work. That's two completely different things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we continue.
Mhm.
But where the influence of the medium is really of great importance, is it in the involuntary substitution of his own ideas for those which the communicating spirit endeavor to suggest, and still more so in the, okay,
Sorry.
it's okay, in the building up of baseless and fantastic theories in accordance with his own opinions or prejudices, whether as a product of his own mind or derived from the suggestions of ignorant or marking spirits. When in doubt, abstain, says one of your oldest and wisest proverbs. Admit only what is supported by evidence. When any new idea is brought forward, however, suspicious, suspicious it may appear, subject it to the test of reason and common sense, and reject unhesitantly whatever is in opposition with them. Remember that it is better to repudiate a dozen truths than to admit a single error. For upon that one error, you might build up a whole false theory, only to see it crumble away like a pillar of sand at the first breath of truth, whereas though you should reject a true idea when first presented, and because it does not seem to you to be sufficiently proved, some indisputable fact or some irrefutable argument will ere long afford you the necessary proof of its correctness. Meantime, O spiritists, remember that nothing is impossible with God and with good spirits, accepting the triumphant of error and iniquity. Spiritism and its admirable doctrine are now so widely diffused that spirits of high degree are no longer compelled to employ mediums of defective moral quality, and therefore, if any medium gives just ground for suspicion by unseemly conduct or manners, by pride or uncharitableness, repudiate alike both him and his mediumnity. However powerful the latter may be, for in all such cases there is a snake beneath the flowers. And with this piece of advice, I conclude my dissertation on the moral influence of mediums. Gratias.
Okay, so now he concludes in making an association or not only of the moral qualities, but the intellectual qualities. And in the intellectual qualities with just plain general culture, but also in the intelligence of the heart. What it has to telling us here is this. We need to associate our moral qualities with our moral qualities with some intellectual qualities. If a minister start to receive messages that does not correspond with knowledge in science, so to say, that's a big red flag. If, let's say, for example, meters receive messages saying that um, the moon will go to fall on top of Earth in the year 2025. That's a big red flag. Any halfway intelligent person, medium, will say, oh, this is an absurd. This does not, it's completely disagreeable with what we understand, what we know in sciences, and this message has no value. A more powerful medium, will you try to take advantage of it? And a completely ignorant spirit, a medium will say, oh, because it comes from the spirits, then it's the truth. You better get ready because the moon gonna fall on top of Earth in 4 years. Again, and it's very important. It's better to reject 10 truths than to accept one lie. The truth will prevail. Will prevail. If you don't take it today, you'll come back tomorrow because the truth is the truth. It will prevail. A falsehood, a false statement may create tremendous problem. We see what's happening today, right now, with misinformation, with other things that is happening today. Right now, here we experience that. Individuals with ill intentions are spreading falsehoods for their own um, advancement. That may be financial, just power. What we see things happening today that we know that it's not true, but people are buying. Who are buying those kind of ideas? Now, if you are a medium receiving messages for the spiritual world, you have to be extra careful. Where is this message come from? How can I evaluate the truthfulness of these statements as being done here? Let's assume that someone a medium start to receive messages to be read as a biography of, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln. And this person is writing, suppose it's Abraham Lincoln that is given an autobiography. That medium would have to correlate what that the message being received, but what we know of Lincoln. We better have to be very, very, very sure that indeed it's come from Abraham Lincoln, and those things that are being revealed can be put to test. Otherwise, you should not publish, you should not use it. And it's the moral qualities of the medium that will allow them to say, I cannot use this work. I cannot use this because I cannot put what we know of Abraham Lincoln out there without making sure that it's really from Abraham Lincoln. But in proudful medium, you'll be all full of vanity and say, oh, I'm receiving messages from Abraham Lincoln. He's giving to me his true history, his true autobiography. Whatever is being published over there of Lincoln has no value because now I have the true autobiography of Lincoln. I'm getting from him himself through mediumship. And you put and commit a serious error that may become very difficult to correct. Someone come over there and says today that, you know, RNA vaccines cause damage to the brain. Well, how can you say that? Based on what? When all the science contradicts it, right? But people use me, but saying things like that. A medium must be very, very careful of what a medium uses, what a medium puts out there. A medium has to have the state of mind that I better throw away 10 truths than to accept one lie. Because a lie can create tremendous amount of problem, but the truth you always prevail. Okay, comments? Give a few more minutes, can you start another chapter if there's no questions?
Okay. Okay. Influence of surroundings on spirit manifestations. 231. Is the action of a mediumnity affected by the quality of the spirits with whom a medium is habitually surrounded? All the spirits who surround the medium influence him for good or for evil. Not the higher spirits neutralize the evil tendency of the incarnate spirit who serves as their interpreter and of the inferior spirits by whom he is surrounded? Yes, but they consider it useful to do so. We have already said that spirits are sometimes enabled by special favor to transmit a communication correctly, despite the imperfection of the medium and its surroundings. But in such cases, the influence of the latter is nullified by their action. Continue.
No, just a minute, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. As I have just said, we are like magnets of energies, right? We are consistently being bombarded by energies. In the spirit's book, when Kardec asked the spirits if the spirit influences our life, the answer is so much so that you may say yes, so much so that we can say that they are the one who runs your life. Of course, that's an immense exaggeration, but we are consistently being bombarded by spiritual energies. Now, those energies may be from spirits incarnate and discarnate as well. That's why advertisement is such a powerful instrument, because we are bombarded by those energies and we are influenced by those energies. So the son of you going to the store and buy stuff, come home and ask, why did I buy this? You bought it because you were influenced by that advertisement. And when you saw that advertisement, you were almost like hypnotized and led you to go to the store and buy that thing. So of course, we are always being influenced for good or for evil. It's up to us, right? It depends where we vibrate. So of course, that all the spirits who surround the medium influence him for good or for evil, just like all of us are influenced, not only mediums. Now, can the higher spirits neutralize the evil tendency of the incarnate spirits? Sometimes, if that interpreter, if that medium chooses to listen. But again, if I'm focused on something else, if I have completely closed myself to it, I cannot be helped. The spirits will always try, I believe in the spirits will always try to help a medium to be a better medium, until they give up and say, well, let the medium be on his own. But in the beginning, they will try to help us. If you use, let's say, the case of the violinist, he gets a violin to play that it's not the best, not properly tuned, he will tune it first, will clean it up first, the best they can do with it, and try to play with that not best quality instrument. If it's impossible, it's impossible. They'll try to make it the best possible instrument for him or her to use it. So the spirits will try to use that, as I always say, that they will do the best what they have, unless it becomes impossible to use it.
Hey, Elmo.
Sure.
Just thinking here. Since previously we were studying, message that let's call bad message. Let's put that way in terms of psychography. And in this chapter, we are studying the influence of the environment and the spirits that will be there to help the medium to improve the work.
Help or not to help, right?
Yeah. So in a serious mediumship meeting where everything follows according to Christ, as you say, and if a meeting psychographing bad messages, if everybody is studying according the way we studying here, it's pretty much, I don't have a better word, but is exposing the medium as his or her moral quality, because we are studying that unless there is a purpose for the bad message, the medium is attracting that kind of spirits for that bad message on the meaning. And if the spirits are allowing that communication to go through, um, the medium, I don't know if the medium has to read too much into it, or the question would be, what's the approach for the medium if something like that becomes it's happening, and also for the group to how to approach and the medium in order to help to improve and not be upset of of what's happening.
Okay, so this match is being received in the mediumship meeting,
Yeah,
or the group that you gather.
on the mediumship meeting.
And another question is, what are you classifying here as a bad message?
Because we've seen that sometimes mediums they receive message that I personally never seen it, but I spoke with mediums that they told me that the same way that we see spirits that on the psychophony, that they are using not constructive language, in a sense of they are upset, mad, or angry, or whatever. That also was transferred on psychography. And I remember asking Fabio, but what's the point for you to write something that's not useful? And it was just a matter of maybe training, maybe that's what I'm trying to figure out, the what's the goal, and how the media itself, if he's studying, is going to look, oh my God, my moral is not as good as I thought because this is happening. So I'm trying to make sense. There's a lot going on, so I'm trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. And that's why I'm asking, what do you mean by a bad message? We may receive simple messages with a very simple vocabulary, but it's still good. We may receive messages that shows the limitations of the spirit, but it is still a good spirit doing the best. Okay. It's simple, it's a very normal, say, maybe the message will be something, you guys are doing good work. Please continue to do that because we're going to help you. That's all the message. It's still a good message, but it's extremely simple. it's the best that the spirit or the medium could produce, but it's still good. Okay, it's still, there's nothing of bad in it. A bad message, as you're saying over there, a rebellious, angry spirit, right? A rebellious, angry psychography should not happen in a well-prepared group. And if it does happen, I can only think of being a test for the group, not for the medium, him or herself, but for the group as a whole. So that's why I asked, is that happening in the leadership meetings here? But I can't really kind of accept the idea of being tested like that. I don't see any reason of a well-prepared group be receiving psychographies of a spirit who should be giving psychophonies. Because definitely that's a spirit who is in need of receiving help and not in a position of giving messages, right? So in a well-prepared group, I can really see that happening. If it does happen, the only possibility that I can accept is one event of a test that may happen once in a lifetime, and that's it. I cannot understand the idea of a well-prepared medium group wasting resource, um, receiving spirits which should be provided psychophony to be assisted, now giving psychographies. I have never seen it. I've seen very simple messages, but it's still good. But message that expresses anger, rebelliousness, antichrist, I haven't ever seen one. If it happens, the only possibility is one in a lifetime test from the mentors, and to see how do we react to it, and but not even that is, I can't see it happening.
Thank you.
Um, I have never seen it.
Yeah, me neither. When I heard, I was like, wow. And again, the source is, is is very knowledgeable. So I, you know, I only open my mind in order to research more and study more. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and
But
I would say it's not impossible at all. I mean, it's a medium of psychography is a medium of psychography. It can be an instrument for good or bad messages, but in a well-prepared group, and a group who's doing things right, um, the psychographers will be limited for good messages, and the psychophonies will be to receive the spirits when it needs to be in need of assistance. In general, in general.
thank you.
Okay.
Now, deceiving um, messages, that's possible. Messages, as you read, it seems to be something good, but when you pay attention to the content, you see that it's or it's completely empty of any value, or it's showing signs of tremendous vanity and pride of the spirit. If you see messages, and there's a head saying that no, in it says you have to do this, we should do this. That's a red flag. The more about the spirits don't tell us what to do. The message, and then it's a message that is really weak exceptions also guided one or another person. If a medium will receive a psychography saying something about another member of the group, that's a red flag. Well, this thing has to be evaluated very carefully. When if that happened, then I would understand there is we are being tested to make sure that we are not exercise that we exercise caution and how we evaluate the work that we do. If continue receiving works of spiritual Buddhas who puts us on a pedestal, you guys are the best, you guys are so good, that's a red flag. Something wrong. Somebody's testing our vanities, testing our pride. Those are all red flags that I have to be careful to. But really angry and rebellious messages, I haven't seen one. I can conceive the idea that well-prepared team would waste the resource avoid this. But again, I'm not saying it's not possible. It is possible.
When you mention about those red flags, I was thinking here because especially for us that English is not our first language, and when the media is doing the psychography, is you don't have time to think. It's very fast, and you have all those words and should have, could have, would have, and and sometimes you you don't you don't know how to wrap the thought in words, and then you put whatever way you figure out at that time. And maybe the message wasn't meant to be you should do something, but the translation came out that way. So when you say those red flags and analyze the message, this is done through a period of time, right? Or if in a message is something that is not according to the teachings, you already, red flag, and that's it.
Well, I don't think anything is concluded in one single episode, right? You have to see with the frequency that it's happening. Um, because as I said, in one message, maybe there was a problem of catching the right words, and it's just going to read that message and say, oh, this message, we're not going to use it. This message has these and these red flags over here. But doesn't mean anything unless we start seeing the repetition. Not going to make a absolute decision or anything through one sample, right? That it's even unscientific, and spiritism is a science. You're not going to decide anything based in one single sample. You're going to have repetition. You're going to have to analyze things as they come along. But if you're having routinely, week in, week out, we see the same pattern, then we know that we have a problem. But by one single message, not going it's not enough sample for us to make it take a conclusion here. It's even unscientific. We cannot do that. But if you see a pattern, it may be the same medium, may be different mediums, but always come with this thing of spirits telling us what to do, or spirit try to test our vanity, seeing how great we are, and we are the chosen ones that Christ is going to use us for this and for that. And it's coming week in and week out. That is a huge red flag. There's a problem with the group, right? Or the group will take this and say that we are indeed the greatest. We have to be placed in a pedestal because we are so good. That shows that the group, as a group, we are being used by inferior spirits who's targeting our vanity for to use as an instrument to spread their thoughts. And that's where the moral quality of the group um, takes a big role. But for one single sample, no, not at all.
And if that happens, so the group will talk to the medium and maybe ask him for study more or apply more, because that's the thing. If the message is coming, maybe there's a purpose behind it, right? So how can the incarnate group, let's put it that way, decide to stop it or not if the spiritual group, let's put it that way, it's quote unquote allowing that to happen?
We haven't faced the situation. We had faced situation more with cacophony, in which we addressed the problem with the medium and the individual base. In this case, being psychography, I think we'd have to get together with the leadership and decide. But I think there is two options. We will ask the medium to not use the psychography for a while, or to use that psychography, write it, do not read to the public. We can, together with the leadership, study, evaluate, and see what is that spirit trying to get. Is it the same spirit? Is that different spirits? But to see there is a direct relationship of that medium with that spirit. If that's happening inside of the group consistently, I think there is a problem with the group, not only the medium. That definitely is a problem with the medium, but there is also a problem with the group that has to be addressed. I don't, if it's happening inside of the group, everybody together there, and even that medium is the only one receiving consistently those messages, I think there is a problem with the group that we perhaps would have to stop with the psychography, the cacophony, the mediumship, study for more, go back to the book, see what's happening before we restart. There have been cases of groups who have just plain stopped mediumship for a while to prevent exacerbation of this kind of problem. I think it'll be a collective problem, even if it's happened with just one medium. And I'm assuming that the medium is trying their best to produce good work.
Thank you.
39, right on time. Went over 2 minutes. So I didn't make a final prayer.
Yes, of course. To our beloved Father, our Christ, our spiritual benefactors, as we gather here today, with a heart full of gratitude, we thank you. We thank you as we continue our studies, the Spiritist book and the Medium's book, to understand, to put in our lives the importance of who we are and why we're here. We are grateful, dear Father, and we ask as we leave here today, we will be able to join again throughout the week in our classes of studies. Return again next week. And we pray for the safety of all of us throughout the week, to our families and loved ones, especially for those that are still going through difficulties through this pandemic. May God bless and keep all of them safe and with a lot of courage. We pray, dear Father, for the Spirit